Engagement to order. Since when I have received apologies for absence from Mayor Southgate, and that's recorded on official council business for the record, and also from Councillor Pascoe, Councillor Forsyth and Councillor Hamilton, and for lateness Councillor Angela O'Leary. I will move that the apologies be sustained. Seconded Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Oh, no, I just need to add my apology. I have council business at 10:30.
Sure. So the apology for apologies for on official council business later on. Okay, and then you still get second confirmation, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just to add to that, if we haven't finished by about 11:15, I'll be needing to get off today.
Oh yes, funeral, so. And I also note that I am an apology from 11 o'clock onwards because I have to briefly attend a long service event, and also then go off to the funeral with yourself and the Mayor to the funeral of former Mayor David Braithwaite. So with those apologies moved and seconded, all those in favour, those to the contrary, carried. We now move to the confirmation of the agenda, and that is as before you. Is there anything else we need to? I will move that the agenda be confirmed. Seconded Deputy Chair Wilson. All those in favour, those to the contrary, it is carried. Do we have any declarations of interest? There appear to be none. We now move to the confirmation of the hearings and engagement can be open minutes of the 24th of February. Moved Councillor Deputy Chair Wilson, seconded Councillor Bunting. Any discussion? All those in favour will say aye. Those to the contrary, no. That is carried. We move to the confirmation of the hearings and engagement committee open minutes of the 3rd of March 2021. So moved by Deputy Chair Wilson, seconded by Councillor Bunting. Is there any discussion? All those in favour, those to the contrary, that is carried. We now move to item 6, the Krieger Green proposal to declare a pedestrian mall. I'm going to invite, I understand we have submitters. Our first submission is from Mr. Mark Chesson. Is he here? Would you like to join us at the table, sir? And the process is that we have an allocated time of 5 minutes per submission, and obviously if you could allow some time within that 5 minutes for any questions. Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning all. As you know, my name's Mark Chesson. I'm here because of the Krieger Green. I'd like to see it as pedestrian facilities, because I live in the Rotorua Retirement Village. Our gate is right outside the entrance where people go through that alleyway. There's 3 schools around us, and that alleyway at night, especially when it's the kids are going home or coming to and from school, you've got parents and that taking their children through to the wonderful soccer ground you've got there all the time, and that pedestrian alleyway is used all the time. You've got the bollards there. Why can't we use them? That's my submission. It's just how I feel about it, but I live in the village and I've seen that many near misses there. It's not funny.
Sure. Are there any questions? Councillor McPherson.
Thanks very much, Mark. Are you observing cars doing the full circuit of Krieger Green around on the other side of the park and round?
Oh, that happens about 1 o'clock at night. They're doing speed races so you can get round the quickest.
Okay. And the bollards, if they were up semi-permanently,
yep,
unless there was an event on?
Yep, I agree with the vent. Yes, I agree with the vent situation, but it's when I first moved into the village, they were up. You had gates across permanently, and there was no hassles at all. As soon as you took those gates down, we had numerous cars going through there, especially school kids. If they're late, look out, don't walk across that road.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much. That's most helpful. Thank you.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
You know you've got that new facilities there with the changing rooms and all that, okay? I know, it's just a different scenario. There's no rubbish tins outside that scenario, outside those buildings, and they're disgusting on the weekends. That's all I want to say, thank you.
All right, thank you.
There is Rubberstones.
Eva Lisa will,
Yeah.
our GM will take note of
There's
that.
Rubberstones 80 metres either
We have the
side.
chair of the community committee as well. Yes,
Yeah, no, I just
Councillor
thought-
Bunting
yeah, I
will
wanted
take
to
note
mention
as
that.
well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make a point of that. Right, thank you. Thank you. Is Devon Shah here, please? No. Geoff Krieger? Thank you, Geoff.
Council stated that Corey Green is a road that was constructed in conjunction with Corey Park and provides access and parking to the park. It also provides a link between Rototuna Village and the Rototuna High School and the surrounds to the northeast of the village. The proposal dramatically changes the council rationale of that statement and proposes to close the road 24/7 for the sake of 40 minutes of some minor congestion. Corey Green was designed as a road, constructed as a road, funded as a road, presumably with the subsidy from LTSA. The proposal to declare a part, even a small part, a pedestrian mall, regardless of the size, the effect is the same, blocking or stopping something that was designed, constructed and funded as a road. Periodically, vehicle through traffic is prevented by a building safety fence, perhaps conditioning the locals. There is NIMBY and exaggeration evident with statements such as much safer for children and all others, will be a fantastic place for people to meet each other, relax and enjoy the surrounding. I live in Somerset Village, retirement village, use this walkway every day to Countdown, then there is no need to use the pedestrian mall. I work at the school and can imagine there will be a high volume of traffic using the road if it is not blocked off. I think it would be unsafe for our students. The majority of high school students use the Corey Park footpath. I like having in areas without traffic, less noise, safer, adds to the quality of life. Makes it safer for kids to run around on a road. Disappointed by certain drivers using the cul-de-sac as a point to gather and then accelerate away, losing rubber in the process. That's a different issue. A loss of traction, illegal. A Hamilton School parents' contention that the amount of traffic coming down Corey Green from Rototuna High School during the afternoon school run prevents exit from the school car park. Corey Green traffic is less than 2 vehicles per minute. No nose to tail, a total of 77 vehicles in 65 minutes in both directions. To have traffic driving through, particularly at night, speeds would be terrible. The area is used by children and elderly for walking and biking. Let's keep it safe. At night? Some believe that the pedestrian mall will curtail high-speed travel and buoy races. However, both have occurred when the road has been blocked and is nowhere near the pedestrian crossing area. The pedestrian crossing area is 3.9 metres wide. Observation reveals that most vehicles, if not all, slowed to transit the raised area. The remaining pedestrian areas are 2.8 and 5.5 metres from a 30 km/h road. Council thinking defies logic, goes against their own stated purpose of constructing a road. There is already a 30-kilometre speed limit since November 2020, but is not enforced. There are wide footpaths on both sides of the road for the safety of pedestrians and cyclists. Option 1 is to do nothing, there's no cost. The other options do not have any cost provided. A lack of information prevents careful consideration. People will vote for an idea unaware of the cost. Korikori Green is a road, designed, constructed and funded as a road. Leave it as it is, a road.
Thank you. Do I have any questions? Councillor McPherson.
It's on your list there, Mr Chair. Thanks, Mr Chair. Geoff, are you aware that the design of Korikori Green envisaged a blocked area to be built in from it from day one, from the time the road was constructed?
Well then, why wasn't that done from word go? Then we wouldn't be having this conversation.
That's a good point, but I'm just checking that we're aware of that.
My point is, to your question, is that however it was designed, it was opened as a road, and your rationale was to provide a link between Rototuna Village and the Rototuna High School. Now you're changing the rules, but people have got, it was opened as a road, and now you want to close it again.
Geoff, before Korikori Green, the road part was built,
Yeah.
People going to and from Rototuna High School accessed that via Bournebrook, did they not, on the other side of the north side of the park? Yeah. And they had no trouble driving to and from there on that side?
Because they didn't have a choice.
Okay, so it's Korikori Green is only one of two possible routes to the high school. It's not the only one.
Quite correct, but do you know how much traffic is on there?
Yeah, I'm frequently down at the school, yeah, and visiting people in Somerset as well, I might add. What would you say to Mark Chesson, who was before you, who lives near that particular walkway or that part of Somerset, and says that, hang on, let me finish,
oh, okay.
and his point that it's annoying not just when people are running late for school, the 40 minutes you were talking about, but also during the night.
Yeah, well, that's just a matter of enforcement. We've got a 30-kilometre speed limit down there, and according to a number of the residents at the village, very few people observe that. Well, that's just a matter of enforcement. Or, conversely, you could put speed bumps either side of what you're proposing to close. That would solve the problem. But when you've got 35 cars in the morning and 77 in the afternoon, at the real congested time when and 250 kids are using that crossing, there seems little point in closing the road 24/7 for that short period of time.
Isn't the not wanting to? Well, I thought asking questions was encouraged.
No, sure, but we do have some time constraints. But I'm in your hands, Councillor McPherson. I'm sure you use your judgment.
Thank you, because we don't have all the submitters here, do we? So we've made up some time, so that's excellent. Thanks. All the construction and development in the area is not finished yet, is it? I mean, for instance, Somerset's still building extra units, and Hamilton Christian School's about to significantly increase in size, and they're both on sideways onto Korikori Green. So that will create more traffic in future, potentially for going through that area, would it not?
Perhaps, but talking to the villagers, that most of them use that area to go to the Rototuna village, and it takes them longer to drive their car out of the village, because it's only 15 kilometres an hour, than it does to walk.
Okay. What about HCS, the school down the end, which is changing its entrance from being on North City Drive to being on Korikori Green?
Who's going to change the entrance?
Hamilton Christian School.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
You can see, sorry, you may not have seen the map that was being supplied to us.
No.
But I'm happy to show it to you later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to have questions from Councillor Bunting and then Councillor Thompson on Zoom. Councillor Bunting.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Geoff. Good to see you again. I was listening to your submission closely. Did you say you live in Somerset Village?
No, I don't.
I thought you said, I live in Somerset Village, I
No.
work at the school.
No.
Were you quoting people from the report?
Yeah.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah, those are the ones in your submissions.
So your numbers of 33 and 75, are they in the submission as well, are they? Or how did you come up with those numbers of cars?
I counted them.
Oh, you went out with your clipboard?
Yeah.
Okay, right, okay.
I went there in the morning when the peak hour at school,
Yeah.
and again in the afternoon.
No, I'm aware of your counting skills there. Okay, with regards to that gentleman who does live in Somerset Village, and I just want to extend on Councillor McPherson's question there. He's identifying a very real problem where it's becoming a bit of a hoon spot at night. Other than sending cops down there every time, have you got any other ideas of what we could do other than shutting it down to fix that problem?
Well, like I said to Councillor McPherson, you could put judder bars on either side of the pedestrian mall, which would slow the traffic down. But the thing is that it's already a 30-kilometre speed limit in the whole length of that of Corrie Green.
Yeah, I know.
It needs to be enforced. If you're not going to enforce it, then it's a waste of time having it.
Well, that's right. But I mean, the cops could play cat and mouse all weekend and they'll just go somewhere else, as you
Okay.
know. So,
Question?
so yeah, no, do you have any other ideas other than having police down there all the time enforcing it?
No.
Apart from then, okay. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Krieger. I'm just interested to clarify your numbers again. So you said there were around 35 cars and 60 something in the 35 something in the morning, 60 something in the afternoon. Is that right?
Correct?
And how many children did you say were using the crossing?
250. 253.
Okay, 253. And was that in the morning? Was it?
No, that was in the afternoon.
Afternoon. So just in the afternoon, there's 253 students crossing. Yeah. All right. Thank you. The other question I just wanted to ask was: are you aware that actually, when it comes to, because I saw that your reasoning, your main reason for opposing this is the cost or potential cost. Is that correct?
No, it just goes against the council's own philosophy and its own statement on what Corrie Green was and is. That it provides a link between Rototuna Village and Rototuna High School.
Okay, so that is your main reason for objection.
Well, that's one of them. But if you're not going to provide the cost, how can ratepayers, residents, determine what is the best value for a particular project?
Okay, and are you aware that it costs if it remains a road, it will cost money each time to actually put up the bollards if needed for any particular purpose like an event?
You've lost me. If it remains a road, it remains a road. There's no bollards.
It would mean a temporary road closure. So each time, then we would have to go through the process of a temporary road closure.
Yeah.
In order to enable event.
Yeah. Okay, fine. But one of the things in the consultation thing that all vehicles except emergency vehicles are prohibited from the pedestrian area. How on earth are they going to get to the pedestrian area if the bollards are up?
Okay. Any further questions,
All right,
Councillor
that's all.
Thompson?
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, thank you very much, Mr. Krieger. We now call on Sarah Tapping to join us, please.
Morena, good morning. My name is Sarah Tapping. I live here in Hamilton near Chedworth across the gully from Hukanui School. My children attend Rototuna High School, which is how I've come to be here today to provide my feedback as a member of the community affected by the proposal to turn a portion of Corrie Green into a pedestrian mall. Corrie Green intersects Kimbray Drive where Rototuna High School is. We live 6 kilometres away from the school. The kids bike all the time, except for when they're too injured, too sick, have an appointment, it's too wet, the bike is broken, or they're recovering from an illness and are not quite up to the 12k return trip. So this means that I'm visiting the school in my car far more frequently than would be ideal, often finding myself snarled up in the traffic shambles of Kimbray Drive during peak school pick-up and drop-off. And I'm not talking about slow, heavy traffic. At peak times, the traffic is gridlocked, trapped, and not moving for an extended period of time. There are 3 major schools in the small block of Kimbray Drive, Borman Road and North City Road, Rotatuna High School, Hamilton Christian School and Te Totara Primary School. This makes for a tremendous amount of traffic, all at the same time, most with valid reasons for using their vehicles and not alternative modes of transport, not that they need a reason. Under the proposal and the alternative options put forward by Council, there seems to be a serious traffic issue that has not been considered or even mentioned, yet it's only metres away from the area being considered and could have potential to improve or solve a chronic traffic congestion issue for the community. The Council's preferred option, that being the establishment of a pedestrian mall for a small section of Korikori Green, seems like such a missed opportunity to ease traffic congestion. The daily traffic flow and management around the entire area, including the Green, needs to be considered, not just around key events at the park, but also daily use of the community facilities surrounding the park, the schools, the retirement home, the village, and ultimately including the library and the pool. The congestion experienced during peak school traffic is astonishing for such a recently developed area of our city. At times, Kimbray Drive is gridlocked, and for some sections of the road, the vehicles are physically trapped. I'm hoping that Korikori Green becoming a through road, at least at peak school times, will go towards alleviating the problem. I do have concerns around a predetermined outcome from this process. From the ourhamilton.co.nz website, I quote, "When constructed, it was anticipated that Korikori Green would be a park lane to service the park and not operate as a key link or become a rat run in the road network." Rat run. This language seems dismissive and diminishing of the community's needs. In this case, road users delivering and collecting students within reasonable proximity of the school. Regardless of the Council's original intention for Korikori Green, adaptations must be considered in order to meet the needs of the whole community. To deny a potential low-cost solution by not allowing through-road access to Korikori Green is a missed opportunity, at best. I therefore ask Council that an extension to the consideration of the proposal be granted to allow, one for me, better understanding around why buses can't use Korikori Green unless the bollards are lowered, for further assessment of the impacts of all 3 options and the impact on all vehicles, cyclists, pedestrians, and immediately surrounding roads, footpaths and cycleways, including during peak times and key events. And for a trial period to be undertaken to understand the actual effect of the 3 options on traffic, including key events and buses, cyclists and pedestrians, so that the community can properly understand what they're agreeing to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take the first question from Councillor Bunting.
Thank you, Sarah. Excellent submission, thanks, and some really practical ideas in there. That was great. I understand your problem fully. Obviously, it's got to a pretty critical point. Do you think it would help if people potentially drop their kids over by the village and they walk the rest of the way? Would that help, or?
Yeah, so I've had a few conversations with people from Council. I can't recall their exact names, and I've spoken to the school a little bit, and that's definitely one of the options.
Yeah.
In my experience, there's two scenarios when I need to deliver my little princes to school. One is they actually genuinely need a lift for some reason. The other is it suits my time and me getting to work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When possible, I actually go and park at the Countdown car park, and they
walk the rest
and
of
they
the way.
walk the rest of the way. When my son had his appendix out, and it was a push for him to stay at school for the whole day, but you know, we did it, and I needed to be near the school.
Yeah, yeah.
To be at the school at a time for collection, you'd need to be there 45 minutes before the end of school, and even then you risk getting trapped in that queue of traffic. And by trapped, I mean you can't go, stuff this, I'm out, I'm going to go and park at Countdown. I mean trapped, you really can't
committed,
move.
aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So you're suggesting it's kind of a combination of things, like potentially you could, I like your suggestion of opening and closing it for buses and things like that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm mixed. I didn't, of three options, there wasn't one clear one that I was really for,
I
because,
understand.
you know, I don't want people going through there unnecessarily, to be honest, and it would be good to be able to close it down for some events.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of it being safe for pedestrians, pedestrian crossings are pedestrian crossings, and people know how to behave on those. I don't think bollards are really an issue around that.
Thank you for that. Enjoyed that.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Thanks. As I understand it, the area you live, just across that gully by Chartwell, there's a bus that goes from there quite close, at least to Watatuna Village, if not to this high school itself. I think some of them actually do go around the high school. Why wouldn't you be using them for your little darlings when they're
My
sick,
little darlings.
instead of driving them there?
My princes, they'd have to walk. But yes, as the crow flies, the bus stop is only metres from our house, but we're on a gully peninsula.
Yeah,
and they'd have to go.
Hooker, is it?
No, it's not. Tipuraa.
Oh, okay.
So they'd have to go back, round, walk up across the road onto the side with the footpath, go up, walk under the underpass over to the bus stop, and it's about 20-minute walk. So you know, it's not. It's a very close bus stop. Yeah, but it's kind of far away. Yeah. So that's why.
Okay, so fair enough on that. You mentioned all the schools in the area. Hamilton Christian School is relatively small at the moment, but are you aware that it's just been integrated and is going to treble in size over the next 2 years?
I am. It's going to become a really decent sized school. Rotatuna High School has got massive capacity problems of its own, as you may be aware, and it's a very highly used, popular area of Hamilton. High density.
Catholic schools going in on the other side of the village, high school.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay, so a fourth, you can add an extra one to your three.
Right.
So the congestion's a problem now.
Yeah.
Sounds like it might get worse with what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But you seem to be saying if there's a traffic congestion problem, open more roads or build more roads as the solution.
Well,
are there not other solutions?
Well, I guess the thing is that it's a bit of a work in progress in terms of getting people to use other modes of transport. We're not there yet. It's going to take a while. We've just bought one of our princes an e-scooter, which is really helping.
I like your description of it.
Yeah.
We bought Geoff an e-scooter too.
And he's no prince.
Is that working? Sorry. And that is helping. But I mean, to be honest, that's lucky for us, because that's out of most people's price range. And you know, of 2,000 children at that school, there's going to be, let's say, even half of them have got very legitimate reasons to be picked up in quite close proximity to that school. So yeah, there are heaps of other options for them getting there, dropping them off nearby, biking or whatever it is. But there's always times when you need to be able to approach that school. You can't do it. At peak times.
Are you aware that for the first 3 years at least of the high school's operation, Watatuna High School, that it had by far the biggest proportion of cyclists in the entire region? Over 60% of the kids were cycling.
I didn't know that statistic, but there are a heap of kids biking and cycling. I mean, I don't see other schools, but yeah, there's a lot of kids on their bikes, yeah. Yep.
Okay. and their big issue a year and a half ago was not having enough bike racks.
Yes, it was.
About and places to put them.
Yeah, I think they're running out again.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for your thoughtful submission.
Sure, yeah.
That's
One
right,
more.
there's no others
Yeah, sure.
before me.
Right.
So you were saying there's no option that you're comfortable with. If there was an option that said lower the bollards occasionally, would you support something like that?
Yeah,
For
if there were-
buses, bikes, whatever it is.
Sure, yeah, actually, and you know, I think of places like around the lake that gets closed at night time, so you can't have all that
Yeah.
through traffic and stuff like that. So I mean, I don't know, but there must be some mechanism to be able to do that.
Right.
The council talks in their proposal of having signage. Obviously, that would potentially be permanent signage, so you could easily alert drivers to the fact that the green was blocked, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do feel like there's other options available to us other than
Right.
what's being proposed.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr Chair, appreciate your
Any
indulgence.
further questions? Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right, I now invite Robin Denton to join us and obviously give a brief overview, and then obviously the processes that we are obviously, as a result of the submissions today as well, and generally, questions that we need, of course, to you can just go through the process with us, and obviously there's a report going to the Infrastructure Committee.
Yes, so thank you, Councillor Martin. I guess I'll take the report as read. Basically, we have had a proposal brought through the Infrastructure Operations Committee to consider whether a pedestrian mall is an acceptable solution moving forward for providing the ability to raise and lower the bollards more frequently. There were three options consulted on. Option 1 was do nothing. Option 2 was lifting the bollards occasionally. Option 3 was to declare a small section of Kurikuri Green as a pedestrian mall. 154 submissions and 73% in support of the preferred option, which was the pedestrian mall. I'm happy to answer questions and take direction for the sorts of things that you would like to see included into the Infrastructure Ops report, which is going to be considered on the 24th of April. 27th, sorry.
Councillor Bunting?
Yes, just Robin, just on that last question I asked Sarah before. What are the implications of having, and I'm just shooting from the lip here, but having an option whereby during those congestion times you could lower it down, where slow traffic could go through, and then it went back up again? Because as I think Geoff said, it's a 45-minute problem or something along those lines. So we could vent it and then have them up every other time. Is that possible, or what's the logistics?
So yes, that is. So I guess the pedestrian malls, we've got 2 in place already in the city. So Garden Place is actually a pedestrian mall. And so that's obviously not available 24/7 unless you have a permit to go there. And then Commerce Street, we've got a section of that that's a pedestrian mall, and that's to allow for the markets on Saturdays. So the advantage of having a pedestrian mall is that it actually gives us the ability, without having to go through the formal traffic management processes to close it, it gives us the ability to do those closures or to open it.
So that's where the flexibility
So
is.
that provides that flexibility. Now, the current wording that we had proposed was around, and I need to find the exact wording, was around events. So what we could do is look at the exact wording when we declare the pedestrian mall, which potentially gives us, so the exact wording is in place 24/7, except where prior permission from council has been given to open Kurikuri Green to vehicles in relation to a particular event.
So could we say that pick up and drop off during school times is an event that's permanent, or?
I guess
I don't know if it goes
could,
against the spirit of what you're trying to do, but
yes, and I guess that's, and that will be part of, I think the pedestrian mall and the way we set it up gives us that flexibility. What we need to do is think very carefully about what flexibility we're trying to get through, without trying to wordsmith it here on the hop, perhaps.
okay, no, that's cool. Just interested to throw it out there. Thanks, Chair.
Right. Councillor McPherson, and obviously this is the opportunity to ask questions in terms of the report that's coming to infrastructure. Councillor McPherson.
You're not suggesting that I would be making speeches while doing it. That would be most unlike anyone in this room.
Oh, I know you'll be making lots of contribution to the infrastructure committee, but obviously,
Thanks.
yeah, we're in your hands, sir.
Robin, do you recall when this particular piece of kit, I'm not sure whether I should call it a road or a pedestrian mall, was being discussed and debated in its early days in the last council, that there was a strong feeling from some councillors that it should never be a through road and should always be 2 cul-de-sacs or something similar?
Yes, I do, yes.
And you heard Mr Krieger's point that why did they build it like a road from the start, sort of with the implication that people have got used to it being a road, so they should be allowed to continue it being a road?
Yes, I heard that, yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's sort of my I told you so moment. Sarah got some figures out from her discussion with Geoff Krieger about the numbers of the 2 modes using it. And I was particularly struck by the afternoon figures, 250 odd, give or take, pedestrians and 60-something cars. Mm-hmm. So that would be an unusual imbalance in favour of pedestrians, users of an area like that, as opposed to cars compared with elsewhere.
Yes.
So compared with other places, a stronger case for pedestrians than we would usually have.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any further questions from the committee? Those on Zoom, Councillor Maxine Van Oosten, and then Councillor Kesh.
And Maxine's on trying to...
No, it's Councillor Maxine's.
Oh.
Thank you. Maxine?
Kia ora. Thank you, Robin, for answering those questions from Councillor Dave. Just thinking about the points that were made by Sarah just now with regard to the snarl up at the schools and the problem that's faced with having all of those schools in a similar area. Do we face other congestion at other schools around the city?
Yes, basically every school has major congestion problems in Hamilton City.
And following on from that, Sarah also talked about the opportunity to park elsewhere and walk in. Is that a viable option, not just in this area, but right around Hamilton?
It's certainly something that we try to promote and explore with the various schools, is trying to minimise the traffic that's immediately outside the front gate, and it might be a short walk or a short scooter to a different meeting point if we can find somewhere suitable, and that's something that we do work with the schools on.
And is there any kickback from the, I'm thinking particularly of Countdown and the use of their car park for that? I also think of Hukanui School and Chartwell or Westfield Shopping Centre as well. Do we get much of a backlash from the business owners around the use of those car parks at that time of day?
Not at council per se. I'm aware, having previously used Hillcrest, is also another example where the underpass works quite nicely to get kids through to Barclay. I think it obviously has an impact on the operation of the supermarket, but I think that there's probably a relationship there with parents probably going and buying something for tea as well, which perhaps offsets some of that concern. But I mean, that's very much an agreement really with the school and that particular provider.
Okay, and I guess finally, do we have advocates working with the school leadership themselves in order to be able to get that messaging out to parents and the guardians and the community around the use of I guess it's particularly at the end of school because all the kids come out at the same time and So do we have advocates that, or are talking to those school leaders?
Yes, so CAM works very, very closely with all of our schools. Obviously, we have one person looking after 50 odd schools, but that is certainly the sort of work that we're looking at is trying to look at all sorts of options, whether it be kiss and drop, whether it's promoting alternate modes, whether it's a sort of park a little bit further away and walk and scooter, the whole behaviour in around the schools, working with the parking team for coming in and doing some enforcement around the really dangerous activities that often happen outside the school gate as part of that chaos. So yes, that's an ongoing piece of work.
Okay, thank you. And I guess, I did say finally before, but are we aware of any near misses? Where is that kind of reporting done in terms of pedestrian and cycling children and the traffic that's around schools at that time of day?
We do get some anecdotal reporting from some schools. It varies a lot, school by school. Unfortunately, as far as an official record goes, it's only when there's an incident that the police attend that we get that sort of official record come through. But certainly Cam and Rotatuna area is one that he's spent a lot of time working with the high schools, etc., trying to ensure that people can come and go safely, whichever mode they're using.
Okay, thank you, Robin, for your excellent answers, and Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Naidu-Rolfe.
Thank you. Thanks, Robin. Sorry if I've missed it, but do we have the costs for options 2 and 3?
So the bollards are already in place. The costs for option 2, if we only raise them for key events, the costs are in around the advertising and formalising the road closure for the events. For option 3, the bollards are already in place. In a similar way to the bollards down in Garden Place are able to be remotely accessed. Basically a text message by an approved phone number can raise and lower those bollards remotely. So the intention was that would be just something that the Parks and Open Spaces team would look after as part of managing that area as and when they had large events coming in. Okay. So very minimal costs.
All right. And just in terms of a wider conversation, so we know that there's a traffic congestion issue with 3 schools, and we know that it's with the increasing role, it's bound to get worse. So have we started work on looking at ways to of how we're going to be approaching this issue, or are we just going to let it run its course?
We've been aware that this was going to be an issue all the way through, which is why we spent a lot of time promoting the alternate modes. And when the high school opened, we actually had drop-in sessions, including working really closely with the regional council with regard to bus services and getting those diverted. Because of the congestion that happens there, unfortunately, the buses are caught up in amongst all of that.
Yeah.
There is an issue around the size of the school and the surrounding network being developed, and I think yesterday there was talk about the Tuakina Rise and various other roads in that sort of area that are being planned for development. Some of those are ones that council are looking to provide, and others we're dependent on developers proceeding. And that will provide, I guess, some relief, but the reality is for this area to work, we do need to continue to really promote those alternate modes to car.
All right. And so the alternate modes top discussion, that's the only active, that's the only thing we're doing at the moment. Is that what you're saying, to promote reducing congestion in that area?
Yes, it's not something we can physically build our way out of quickly, and any capacity we probably build will be taken up. So, yeah.
And last question, with option 3, like if it was a pedestrian mall, could those bollards be dropped during that school pickup and drop-off time?
That's an option that we could consider if elected members would like to us to investigate that further. We would have to, I'd get some advice as to whether that was significantly different to what we have consulted on. But I'm happy to go away and ask those questions.
Perfect, thank you. Chair, do we have to, how do we make that happen?
I'm happy to take a note of that, Councillor Kesh.
Thank you, Robin.
Is that fine? Is that all right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from Kesh's questions, Robin, what impact would having Korikori Green open during school drop-off and pick-up times actually have on the issue of congestion that submitter described, and taking also a medium-term view, given that your comments were around creating capacity and it getting filled up.
So I guess the advantage that we have with the way Korikori Green's been developed with the cul-de-sac head is that the southern section of Korikori Green does facilitate a park and walk type scenario, and there's the ability to turn around and head back down through the Rotorua village. The intersection of Korikori Green at Kimbray, with all the congestion etc., is not going to be any improved. And yeah, when it's in gridlock, then there's nothing much I can do at the moment. There's no magic levers that I have to make any difference out there.
Okay, so thanks, Robin. Sorry, I wasn't fully clear on your answer there. So what impact will having the pedestrian mall, the bollards down, have on school congestion versus having them up and not having that?
The bollards have been down.
That second throughway.
Yeah, so the bollards have been down, and it hasn't helped with congestion. It may provide some relief. I think the bigger issue is probably the way the Kimbray-Korikori Green intersection is set up. I think if the bollards are up, then it probably makes it easier for people to do that U-turn at the bottom half of the, but it's hard to know. I don't think it will make a significant difference, I guess, is my personal opinion.
Okay, is it possible to have that also in the deliberations report, just the some explanation around that, if there's any further information able to be provided?
Yes.
On that, because that seems to be quite a important issue today. The other question was just following that broader line of questioning around the schools and congestion. Have we looked at potentially taking on, say, looking at one or two schools and doing a really fine-grained look at what barriers there are to children using other forms of transport to get to and from school? Sarah mentioned for her sons there seems to be this issue of the gully creating separation and meaning that the walking to the bus stop suddenly becomes a much bigger ordeal. And I'm wondering if we looked at, say, a school with a closer focus, we could see what kind of difference we could make by having a focused approach.
Yeah, so basically you're suggesting a travel plan sort of approach for the school.
Yeah, like a pilot where we kind of put resources in there with a travel plan and then see monitored the impact that it has.
Yeah. We used to do a little bit of work in that sort of area. We haven't done a lot of work more recently. That's where your walking school buses and those sorts of concepts came through. The modern way is that the walking school buses tend to fail because there's just not parents and volunteers available with that amount of time. It's something that we could do, but we're not resourced to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Robin.
Councillor McPherson.
Just on that last point, in years gone by, we had a specialist team that was partly funded by NZTA to work with schools on these sort of transport alternative issues, if you like, didn't we?
We've had various sort of make-ups, yes. Currently we've got...
That was a partially subsidised though, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. That,
which is no longer available?
No, CAM's work is all subsidised.
Okay.
So yes, it's just the amount of resource that we have.
So we could put more in and get more subsidy for that sort of thing?
Potentially, yes.
Okay, that's just, I'll say that. Just in terms of your kiss and ride description, if you can call it that, you're talking about the bottom end of Kori Green doing a UE and coming back out there. That would be past the new entrance of HCS, Hamilton Christian School, would it not?
Yes.
Which is rapidly expanding in size
yes.
from this year.
Yes, yeah, so and that area is...
that's going to become congested with or without Rotorua High School traffic?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm wondering whether you would consider looking at the parking arrangement in Rotorua Village, so further out, actually down by, is it North City Drive, where the shops are, would be the turnaround and drop-off area, perhaps, rather than all the way up the end of,
yes.
up by the bollards?
Yes, yeah, and I guess that's the sort of thing that on a school-by-school basis, they may each have somewhere that's slightly different. And then, you know, looking forward with the Resolution Drive being built, there's a really good walkway network being created through there as well, which will also mean that those people who currently have to try and come down through Borman Road will actually be able to get through that network in the longer term as well.
So that brings my last question, which is another kiss and ride place. There is now a underpass walkway from Waireka Drive, the housing across the expressway, which for someone, for instance, coming from Chartwell, Chedworth area, like Sarah was talking about, they could perhaps avoid congestion or all the Kimbray Drive congestion, let's say, by dropping them off, going out Hukanui Road and dropping them off at the walkway to the high school underneath the expressway in Waireka.
Yes, and I think if you went through that travel plan approach that Councillor Sarah was talking about, that would provide the opportunity of looking at where people are actually coming from and then looking at what are the best opportunities. And it may not be necessarily a drive and walk, it might be a drive to find a good location for a bus stop, for example.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are the sorts of things that could be explored through that sort of travel planning approach.
So given the 3 schools in the immediate area and the 4th one going to be built and the enlargement of one of those, significant enlargement of one of those 3, would it be a good idea to look at Rotorua North as a catchment for specific focused work on how we sort this out?
Yes, I think that would be great, and I think working really closely with the Regional Council too as to how their bus services operate would also be key part of that as well.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Obviously a reminder that we may have, I'm just trying to work out our quorum issues when Councillor Bunting and I have left. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
We're working on getting Councillor Andrews.
You and I'll vote twice.
We're hoping Councillor Andrews is going to join us because the magic number is 7. I'm just going to take account, because we've obviously got a major item beyond this, and obviously this is just asking questions, and then the real debate will happen and discussion will happen at the Infrastructure Committee where the decisions are actually made. So very much focus on what you want to see in the report. Councillor Bunting?
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll be quick because I realise there's a second bite of the cherry, but I was just listening to the questions has got me thinking about Dave's kiss and ride solution. With regards, you know, you're talking about it being a U-turn at the end of that. I'm looking at the car parking by the changing rooms in there. is there a way potentially of making that more of an easier U-turn, so that could be your drop-off zone, where then the kids have just got to walk across that field there, rather than, because at the moment it's got islands and it's got car parks and stuff like that, so could you potentially make that the major kiss and ride for both of those schools almost?
I think that would be the sort of detail that we could get in with the
Down the
schools.
track, yeah.
Yes.
And look, and one other question, apart from Krieger Transport Solutions counting systems, do we have any other data of how many cars are actually going through that?
I don't believe we've had a traffic count done then,
Is that easy to arrange before the next thing, or is that going to be expensive? And
I can certainly ask. Yeah,
it'll be
I'll
nice
see.
to have some
Yeah.
data, I guess.
There's more cars.
No, sorry, apology. I apologise, but this must be, and I do urge members, we must be focused on the questions going into deliberation. By all means, send further information.
Yep. Thank you.
From a submitter. Robin?
Yeah, I can.
Right, Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up on the question around the travel plan. And Robin, is it possible to include some commentary around that in the deliberations, or should that be reported back to us in terms of opportunities to pursue that in a different way?
I'll have a chat to Evelisa and work out how, but it's noted. We'll work out how we get that information to you, which is the appropriate forum.
Fantastic, thank you.
Right, if there are no further questions, we go to the staff recommendation, and this is just a procedural process. And Councillor Wilson's going to remove that the Hearings and Engagement Committee receives the report. Note, we have heard and considered public submissions as per item B, and notes that a deliberations and adoptions report that includes feedback from the consultation and hearings will be brought to the Infrastructure Operations Committee on the 27th of April 2021. Move Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor Bunting. Is there any discussion before I put the motion? Obviously the substantive discussion, of course, as we all know, will be at the Infrastructure Committee. Councillor McPherson.
I believe there should be a C in there, and that we should, D, sorry, that we should be specific, and can I suggest that to the mover and see, that we specifically ask staff to comment in their report to the Infrastructure Committee on the idea of a travel plan for the Rotuna North suburb, bearing in mind the growth of the school population there, or something like wording like that.
Would that addition be acceptable to the mover and the seconder? Is that acceptable to the seconder? Right, we'll put that in as an item. That'll become a B, C, and then D, noting that staff have been asked.
Yep.
Right, Councillor Bunting.
Just for clarity, if I may, just ask, with the idea of dropping them occasionally and raising them, none of those options preclude that, do they? The pedestrian mall, that could happen under that, that's what you're saying. Got it. No, thank you. Thanks for your indulgence.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson. No.
I'm speaking to the motion.
Yeah, speaking to the motion, Councillor McPherson.
Look, even though I don't hold many candles for the expansion and car use in the area, I have to say that I have sympathy for the positions of all the submitters this morning, particularly my friend's probably the wrong word, Geoff up there, who, but not enemy, because he raises a valid point. If it's being used as a road and then you're trying to restrict it afterwards, you buy yourself problems. And that's particularly have sympathy with that argument. We could see, just by looking at a map, that there would be problems around this park, and we talked about it being a potential racetrack if you had a road, the ability to drive all the way around. What are you going to get? You're going to get people driving all the way around, and so lo and behold, we have done that, and I think that's a lesson to the future. Secondly, I think we really need to engage with all the schools in the area. I'm quite familiar with the administration of two of those schools, the two high schools that are there at the moment, and to be honest, they're thinking about their buildings and their students, but not about the wider effects on the community too much, and we have to make it as part of it. When we get a resource consent application for a 2,000 person school, then another one for a 1,000 person school literally within a stone's throw, we should have red flags rising all over the place. How are we going to get kids and parents and staff in and out of those places? So that's why we really need a travel plan there. It is almost too late, but probably better late than never, especially with a fourth school planned for the immediate vicinity, plus all the traffic we're going to get from the Rotatuna village. We need a better plan than we've got at the moment for how you access the entire area. We need to be talking to Mr Kimpton about his developments. He's holding up on Turakina Rise, so that's not yet an exit for traffic. You know, it's very constrictive because of the way the developers have chosen to develop it. So our forward planning, to be honest, hasn't been good enough, and we're all at fault of that. It's not blaming staff. This is probably still the best planned area of the entire city, and it's nowhere near good enough.
Move of the motion, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, look, I fully support Councillor McPherson adding the additional item requiring staff to prepare a more visionary travel plan. I do make this observation. It may be time that New Zealand and maybe Hamilton could be one of the leading cities, that we start to just enforce a simple concept that parents can't drop their children off at school. It's often used in Canada and the United States, and what that happens is in those areas they have school buses. And the school buses work around a particular suburb which is attached to the school, and they have priority over everything in terms of getting to the school. And part of our problem is that we have permitted in New Zealand society this premise that we should be able to drive and drop and pick up our kids, and it's creating a significant bottleneck. And so maybe it's time we start to say, actually, when schools are designed, they need to put forward a bus strategy that reflects their catchment area, prevents parents from outside the catchment area driving, and starts to really start to manage this, because the processes that we're suggesting are a band-aid on a much more in-depth problem. And I really think we need to start to give that serious thought. And we just need to look across to Canada and learn from what they've done and start to implement it.
Thank you. And obviously we're forecasting a degree of the substantive discussion at infrastructure as well. Councillor Bunting.
Thank you, and thanks for all the conversation, the questions and the submissions in particular. That was really enlightening. Thank you, Robin, for the information. There's nothing I disagree from either of my two esteemed colleagues over there or just disagree with. Yeah, I think you're right. You're in an ideal world. We will have school buses back. Unfortunately, it wasn't our decision to stop the school buses, and we need to lobby hard to get that back in, because that's the solution to so many of our schools. In the meantime, though, we have a very immediate problem in that there are some, many legitimate reasons for dropping little princes off at school. If they are crook, if an emergency vehicle needs to get through or a school bus needs to get through, those roads aren't functioning in their purpose at the moment. I think I still would like to explore the idea of, in the meantime, venting that pressure of congestion by not only having the bollards that can go down for a 15, 20, 30-minute period during the day, but also looking at the intersection at Kimbray and Korikori Green, because it's, if I'm right, you can't turn right into that anyway. So that's pretty much why it's not being used as a vent or a bleeder from there. So I think, yeah, I agree. We've got to get to that point where schools are sacrosanct zones where only the vehicles that are absolutely needed get in there, parking for teachers, etc. But I think in the meantime we need to work on a short-term solution, and I fully endorse the idea of a transport management plan for this area, because you've got 4 big schools there in a village we're trying to build, so this is the perfect time to do it.
Councillor Wilson. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair.
thank you to the submitters who have taken the time to come and present today. I really appreciate that. It's not, it is something that actually takes time out of your day to do. And thank you for raising the different issues around congestion around school. In terms of that wider issue, I just also wanted to support the idea of looking at a travel plan, and it could be we're seeing dangerous behaviour around a lot of our schools in Hamilton, and abusive behaviour as well when parking wardens or teachers approach parents to say, you can't be parking on broken yellow lines or crossings or wherever they may be parking. They do cop a lot of backlash or abuse. So there's a wider problem, and it could be that if we focused on 1 or 2 schools or 1 or 2 areas, we could run a bit of a pilot, which could then be a business case or an example that we can use to then move to other parts of the city. So I understand it will cost, we don't have the budget for it at the moment though, so we're going to have that discussion around that. But doing a pilot and creating a model for other areas could be an incredibly worthwhile investment. So I really look forward to hearing back on options around that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Naidu-Rolfe.
Thank you. I just want to endorse what I've heard, especially with Mark and Sarah. Travel plan and looking at that whole area as in the bigger picture. I think it's overdue. Being stuck in that traffic quite a lot myself, I know what it's like and I know how much time is wasted, especially in that Rototuna Junior High, Somerset area at peak times. And I'm also interested to see how, with our planning of Rototuna Village, and like Dave mentioned, whether there is capacity to have some sort of drop-off pickup zone in the village itself near the community hub, where you've got the library and you've got other facilities for the youth, whether that is a more feasible option. So whether that comes through as part of the larger travel plan work or the work with the actual Rototuna Village. I just hope that it does come through sooner rather than later. So thank you. Submitters.
Right. If there's no other speakers, Councillor Wilson, right of reply.
Not required.
Right. I will now put the motion with the addition, of course, of the item on the travel plan. All those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hands.
Excuse me, Chair, I wonder if we could put that wording up.
All right, sure.
Is it the same that's in the document?
Right.
But with the addition of D being the travel plan, that's my understanding?
Right. Yep.
I'm fine with that.
No, that's fine. Absolutely, sure. There's no problem. Where's the wording? Oh, here we go. Right, it's there. Note, and D is notes that staff will include matters raised by elected members in the deliberations report, including information on a potential travel plan for the suburb of Rototuna North. Right? Okay, I will now put the motion, and I'm just going to ask those of you on Zoom and in the chamber, if you're all those in favour, please raise your hands. Those to the contrary?
The motion is passed unanimously.
Right, thank you. And we thank again the submitters for actually your coming in and giving your view. Thank you so much. We now are going to move to item 7, the parking restrictions and traffic bylaw changes, and invite Rob and Denton to join us at the table.
Thank you, councillors. So I'll take the report as read. I'm happy to talk further to the specific development sites if elected members would like to. Otherwise, I'll open up for questions.
Questions? Any questions from members? Otherwise, Hearings and Engagement Committee receives the report, approves the changes to parking restrictions and controls as per page 43, 44 and 45. It is moved by Councillor Wilson. It is seconded by Councillor Thompson. Does Councillor Bunting want to join us, or is he? Right. We're about to put the motion. Right, we're now going to put the motion as per on page 43 of the agenda, and I've read the motion. It has been moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor McPherson. Right, there's no debate or discussion.
Mr. Chair, I thought Sarah...
Oh, Sarah, sorry, thank you. I apologise. I was just running, I was counting my quorum numbers, but it's all right. Councillor Wilson.
The only comment I was going to make is a thanks to the staff of the detailed diagram of the turn to the right for the cycles. I found that very helpful.
Right. Okay, I will now put the motion. All those in favour will raise your hands. Those to the contrary.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Right, the motion is thank you. We now move on to item 8, temporary road closure for Rostrevor Street, and again invite Robin Denton to join us. We're in your hands, Robin.
Sorry, I just hit the wrong button and my report disappeared completely. Right. Temporary road closure for Rostrevor Street. This is part of the Innovating Streets project, and is a proposed trial closure of the length of Rostrevor Street between Tristram Street and the Norton Big Roundabout for a period through to the end of June, to understand what impact that has on the surrounding traffic network. During that time, there will be several events at the FMG Stadium, so that's also part of the reason for that period of closure, is to understand when we have those big events come in, how that area operates. And I'm happy to take the report as read and answer any questions from there.
Of course, in this case, we are, if you like, this is a decision of this committee to enact that proposal or otherwise.
Correct.
Do I have any? I have a question for Councillor McPherson.
Yeah, Robin, as a regular user of that roundabout, but not, I hasten to add, not of Rostrevor Street leg of it, I note that cars whipping around it from the King Street and Norton Road areas to the west sort of often appear to be lining up a sort of a slingshot effect into Rostrevor. What sort of warning, how far back are they going to be warned about the fact that Rostrevor's closed? I'm a bit concerned that someone will come screaming around there, try to go into Rostrevor, suddenly see it's closed and whip back out onto the quite wide roundabout.
Yes, so we will have VMS boards out there in advance, and then there'll be temporary traffic management in place, which will...
On the edge of the roundabout?
On the roundabout, yes, on the approaches, just to say that Rostrevor Street's closed.
What about, how far out will the VMS things be?
We haven't exactly...
I'm just thinking, if, let's say I'm coming in Norton Road around the Fraser Tech Old Boys, whatever, rugby club somewhere.
It'll be somewhere in that sort of area, yes.
Okay, 400 metres out.
It's about trying to find a spot that we can safely deploy the VMS signs is often the limiting factor.
And on, is it Commerce Street as well? King Street,
Street, yes. So the idea is to put that out for a couple of weeks ahead of, along with all the other comms that we'll do about this particular project. And then we'll have, as I said, the temporary traffic management supporting it. And the same coming along Tristram, because some see that as a shortcut to get onto the roundabout when Norton Road's gummed up. Correct, yes, yes. Okay, cool, thank you.
Further questions?
I'll second.
Yes, Councillor Wilson has moved, Councillor Thompson has seconded, and the The motion is that the Hearings Engaged Committee receives the report, approves the temporary closure of Rostrevor Street between Norton Road and Tristram Street under the Provision Local Government Act number 66, Schedule 10, Clause 11D, between 9 a.m. Monday the 12th of April 2021 and 9 a.m. Monday the 5th of July for the purpose of trialling the Innovating Street project, and notes that the following completion of the Innovating Streets project in Ward Street and Rostrevor Street, further updates will be provided to the Infrastructure Operations Committee for the final decision on any long-term designs. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. No, we've yes, sorry. All those to the contrary?
The motion is carried unanimously.
And can I thank the staff, particularly the staff present, for both your combined work and your teams, and would you convey to your teams for these projects our appreciation and thanks for the hard work, professionalism and interaction with stakeholders. Thank you. Right. There's nothing else. Well, this is, yes, we've got, so I thank all, so we've, that's, to be honest, I hadn't, well, I won't say that because that would encourage, I'm delighted that we have concluded by 10:45, but we're obviously back at 1 for the hearing.
Excellent chairing, Mr. Chairman. We'll have to put you in charge of